I hope you understand what I'm saying. I enjoyed myself here last time. I hope it will be the same. So here we go. I was born 88 years ago in a small city in the country of Poland. I had a very good life. We were happy, and like every other family, excuse me. But like everything else in life, it brings obstacles. In 1939, September the 1st, our country got invaded and declared war. The war didn't last too long, unfortunately. We were attacked by Germany, and the war ended in 16 days. Our country was invaded. We, as children, didn't know much what war meant, but we learned pretty soon. Our country not existing anymore. It got divided in two countries. Half went to Russia, half went to Germany, and it was declared peace. But at the same time, we didn't have any peace. We had a different country with different laws. Everything changed. You couldn't own your private business, you couldn't own your private factory, store, or any form of livelihood. Schools disappeared, religion disappeared. Everything became under the government. Parents were afraid to speak in presence of children because a child can tell something that wasn't necessary that you want them to say to other people. We had a lot of people put in jail or sent to Siberia. And life was different, but we learned to adjust. And as a child, I didn't feel that much different. But that was too good to be true. In 1941, in June 23rd, we got again a war. This time, it lasted many years. This time, we got attacked by Germany again on Russia. That was June the 23rd. And we lost another life. That means everything changed from day to day worse. We got in, the German army came to our town in about 2-3 days. And then new laws started again. From the beginning, it was fine. We thought, oh well, another regime, what do we know? It'll be better. It's an educated country, an advanced country, life will improve, but it didn't. After they came in, we got new laws every day. First, not to walk on the sidewalk. No schools, no this, not that. Then they decided to take 50 people. Why the 50 people? Because in case something happens in the city, and by accident a German soldier gets shot, those 50 people will be killed. Well, everything went by peacefully, so the people were returned home. The next 2 days was fine. Then we got a new law. First, we had to wear the Star of David in yellow. It was supposed to be printed in a yellow spot on your left side of your body, in the front and in the back. It had to be a certain way made and a certain way put. Then the next law, you had to bring all your gold, silver, and copper, all the jewelry and all that. If you didn't, well, you were killed. And that's what they did. One woman was bringing the stuff, and then a German soldier said to her, "You saved your ring." She said, "No, I didn't." And they shot her. And she didn't have any jewelry on her, but they shot her just the same. And there was nothing to walk, no food, no nothing. And every time they had something say again and again, then they decided to send some people for work. 400 people, 500 people, and just more problems. Food was scarce, and we didn't know what to do. Then they wanted more stuff. Then they had a list that all the men should come on the marketplace. All the young ones from 16 and up. When we got to the marketplace, there was a big van, a military van that soldiers usually travel in, and there was a table with about 6 or 7 SS soldiers, dogs, which was normal because they did everything with dogs. And they had a big list, and they started reading out names. And there were 220 people. And then they told them all to go up on the truck. When they read the names, my father and older brother of his were included. Who were the people who were taken? There were the doctors, the lawyers, the pharmacists, teachers, the rabbi, all the businessmen, all the people who run the community. Who did the list? Your good neighbors. They supplied the list. But we were fortunate. My uncle, my father's younger brother, didn't live on the same street as us. They forgot about him, which was a blessing in the long run. Where did they take them? They told us they're taking them to work, but they had to have shovels. So the city had to provide the shovels. And they took the word that they're going for work someplace. But it wasn't true. We never heard or saw them again. The farmers used to come and tell us stories. They saw them here, there, all over the place. But it wasn't true. All they wanted is gold or silver from us, or money, or clothes, or whatever, to be paid back for the information, which wasn't true. And life kept on going like that. Killings from time to time, and more loss. Then it's already September, and it's not getting better. More killings. The youth in the city, we had a lot of young people, beautiful people, and they decided they have to do something because it's not going to be better. So they started to try to go to the woods. When the Russian army left our city, a lot of soldiers didn't have enough time to run back to Russia because the Germans invaders came very fast. So they ended up in the woods or hiding with farmers. All they had to do was change the clothes, and they could be as any farmer because they spoke the language and everything. When the Jewish boys ran to the woods, they got in touch with some of those soldiers. Those soldiers wanted to fight the Germans. And the Jewish people, the young ones, tried to put up together with them and join them. But you needed guns, any kind of form of to fight with. They used to come back to the town and give up the information that they learned from the soldiers, and more got organized, and they kept going to the woods. When they got there, they decided to form an underground fighting unit between the soldiers and the Jewish boys, which they did. And they used to come and organize more in the city, more youth. Then in February 42, they decided, the government, we are going to have a ghetto. Do you know what a ghetto means? They fence in a certain side of street, and they put up wires and metal stuff that you can hurt yourself, so you can break out from there. And they put as many people as they can in there. It's like an open jail. There's limited food, limited of everything. Some of the people they'll take to work, which that's tailors, shoemakers, and they put them to work for uniforms, shoemaking for the army. So that was work, and or build bridges, build roads, and life wasn't easy. We moved from our home, and we were lucky that my uncle's house happened to be in the ghetto part. So we all went there. Meanwhile, my mother was pregnant, and she had a baby already. And my father never knew that he was going to be a father again. We came in the ghetto, and my uncle and aunt both worked. So we had a little bit of food. But I also had my grandfather with us, and he couldn't work. But we children, as bad as it was, didn't understand everything, but we knew we had to be quiet. We had to do no complaints, no wanting anything, and it wasn't easy. And they said in 42, April the 30th, we woke up to a noise. And we knew already its problems. Why? We had a lot of dogs barking and a lot of food stamping from the soldiers. And we could hear the normal voice saying, arouse, arouse. That means out, out. When we got up and looked outside, we could see what was going on. They ordered us to go on the market again. By that time, my grandfather passed away a week before in his sleep. So he was blessed. When we got outside to the market, the whole community gathered there, because we didn't have where to hide, and it would have helped. They would have found us. So then again, there's a list and soldiers. And they started right and left, left and right. So my uncle went first. I and my cousin, my brother and sister, my auntie, and then my mother and the baby. And they pushed us to the right. We didn't know it was good or it's bad, but we did it. When that was finished, they started again. So the ones on right, they had to march out of the ghetto from the city. The ones left went back to the ghetto. To the ghetto. So we were marching out of town all the way till the city ended. And then they told us to sit on by the highway in the ravines. You know, there was ravines on each side of the road. So we were all sitting there, and we were, the whole community, just a few were left in the ghetto. And then we're sitting. It was a beautiful, beautiful April day. The sun was shining, but we didn't know what our luck is going to be. We were from both sides, soldiers with the dogs. And we're waiting for what? Who knows? Then some more Germans came, and it was higher up. And again they started to sorting, right and left and right. So when we were sitting, there were two roads, one going this way, one going that way. Right there in the middle was a little wooded area, like some trees, and never paid anybody any business. It was there. But when the first group went there, we could hear shooting, so we knew already what was happening. Then we started sorting out again, right and left, right and left. The ones going straight in the wooded area, we could hear the shots. After it came, and we started going to the point, and they moved us again. So they moved my uncle, me, my siblings, and my aunt, right, and my mother and baby straight. So she and the other people went straight. By the time we crossed the road, we could hear the shots, so we knew what was happening. After they finished all right and left and all the killing, by that time it was over 1,200 people dead. But they had already the grave dug out from before. So the people were shot right there and they fell in the hole. When we got up from where we were sitting on the right, they marched us back to the ghetto. And when we got back to the ghetto, there were less than over 1,200 people shot. So they decided the next morning to make the ghetto smaller because there were less people. So my uncle's house got liquidated and we had to move to another place. And that's what we did. And they put some more wiring on because it was still the ghetto. And we stayed like that again. And we didn't know what minute to minute. My uncle and aunt kept working, and as children, I was in charge of. I was at that time 10 years old, so I wasn't a very good watcher because we couldn't get in trouble anyway. There was nothing to do but sit and wait for the impossible. On August the 6th, we had another liquidation. But then, before that happened, the house where we lived was our new home. And there was a family with two daughters living in there, and we moved in there. But to make a hiding place, we didn't know how to go about it. So the man decided, in Europe in those days, we didn't have cellars like we have here in Canada. You just had a hole in your sidewalk, in your flooring, and you made like a little hole, and you kept those little things for the summer. But it didn't do it. It was just a hole in the ground. So the man decided to increase it. To increase it means bigger and maybe that would be a hiding place. But what do you do with the earth? Where do you put it in summer? So we had a little shack on the property, and that shack was going like that inside with the earth. And the man kept digging it, and they made it bigger. And then they cut out the flooring, and they make it so that it won't be noticeable that it's got slits inside. So you can hide down there, and when they walk on the floor, they don't feel it. So we were hoping it'll go. After the 6th came, and we had again the journalists in the ghetto, and again the orders to go out. We all got in the hall. And also my auntie's sister and husband came with a baby. We were all 6 children in that hall, and we all had whooping coughs. Do you know what whooping coughs is? It's a very bad cough. And we were coughing. How we were going to survive, we didn't know. We went in there on the 6th of August and stayed the whole day. We didn't know what was going on upstairs, but we could hear the boots going over our head, back and forth, and we could hear the soldiers talking between themselves. Where is everybody? They were still close, and where is everybody? And any minute we start, the floor will give, and they'll find us. But we were lucky. Somehow we didn't cough, and the baby didn't cry, because the baby was 4 months old. We came the first night, and what do we do the next morning? We were afraid. Our luck will run out. The lady decided she's going to take out the baby and put him on a bed and maybe that'll save us. Sure enough, she did it. And a couple hours later, which it felt like a year, we hear the boots again in the house, and we can hear clearly saying, where does the baby come from? It wasn't here yesterday. So they started, we could hear the whole house being taken apart, looking for people. But we were lucky. But we were afraid a lot was not going to hold. So when night came, how we knew it was night, we just didn't hear anything. It was quiet. So my uncle went out and inspected outside, and we were lucky there were no dogs around. So we decided to go out from the home, so which we did. But then we had to leave the ghetto, and there was a little drainage or something. There was a little bit of water there by the fence, and we had to walk there to get out of the gate. My uncle knew how to do it, and he was directing us. And we were praying we shouldn't hear any dogs, because if they keep us, they'll start barking, it'll give us away. We were lucky. And by daylight, we were already past the ghetto, past the city, in a wooded area outside in the country. But then another problem is summer, the cow are out of pasture, and the boys are minding the cows. If they go into the wooded area or we children start coughing, they'll find us. So we were lucky. Again, we all were too tired, so we fell asleep, hungry and tired and scared. My uncle and other men were standing watch over us. But we couldn't stay there. So when night time came, we started working toward the woods. And by daytime, in the morning, we got to the woods. Where to go from here? Who's going to look after us? But we all fell asleep when we got back deeper in the woods. And again, my uncle can't sleep, he has to watch over us. And lo and behold, there's a rider on a horse. Guess what? One of the Russian soldiers, ex-soldiers, partisan, he found us. And he says to my uncle, who are you? Where are you from? So he says, I'm from Jackalovo, from from the ghetto. He says, I know what happened in the ghetto. What's your name? And he tells him, he says, I knew a man like that. He says, who? He said, David. He says, that was my brother. And guess what? That was a Russian soldier. When in 1939, when the Red Army came in, they passed our house. And he was one of the soldiers who spoke to my father. He asked the road to where this road was going when we were invading our country. And he remembered. So he said to my uncle, go deeper in and you'll find the Jewish partisans, which we did. And sure enough, by daytime, the next morning, they found us. So they said, go here and go there, and we'll try to help you, which we did. And from then on, we had to be on our own. The wood was a home, and how we're going to make it, we didn't know. The partisans couldn't help us much because they were busy to get ammunition and rifles, and the farmers in our park, when the Russian army left, when the Germans were advancing, they dropped a lot of ammunition in the rivers, or they just left it in the woods. Some of the farmers saved it. So, but by giving the farmers should give the ammunition to the partisans, they wanted something in return. The partisans didn't have any money what to give. So a lot of times they had to take it by force. Some were nice and they gave for free, some didn't. So we knew already that those farmers are not going to help anybody because they are just have like the Germans. But eventually it got better. The partisans organized more, and they formed big fighting unions, the Jewish and the Russian. And more Jewish people came from different countries, cities, and found each other. But we happened to be on our own. All the families who survived the ghetto had to look after themselves. We knew that our partisans, but we had to work on our own. So again, my uncle found a place where he felt with suitable, and it had to be higher up ground. We shouldn't get water in the hole. And he dug out a hole, and that's where we stayed. Days we stayed there, nights sometimes we came up for the air. But we had one part farmer gave us, and my uncle used to sneak out from the woods and go to the farmers to ask for some food. Sometimes he came back with some again with nothing. And that's how we lived. We didn't have any water, heat, blankets, shoes, nothing. When we left the ghetto, we were just in summer clothes because it was August. How we survived, where we got the clothes, I can't tell. I don't even know, but I know we had something. What we had was mostly good farmers. But we were lucky again because our family for generations was dealing with the farmers. What did they do? Farmers have farms. They grow a lot of grain, potatoes, they have cattle, they hunt, they do all kinds of things. And our area is very rich in wood, trees, forests. So my family was dealing with the farmers, buying the goods from them and selling to bigger cities. And that's how farmer made the money and we made it life. So they knew us. So because they knew us for generations, some of them were good to my uncle. On top of that, because my uncle knew the woods and the forest and villages, he could help the partisans when they needed where to go to which farmer, where they will find help, where they will not find help. So it made it easier for us. That way it was okay, but in 1942, in December, when we were just a couple months in the woods and it was already cold, and in Belarus, it's cold. It's very, very cold. So there when it's winter. So we had the partisans were fighting in the small communities. If there was an army settled in, how do you say, a point that where they directing everything in this region or in that region. So they were attacking the Germans, they were turning the railways, the trucks, or attacking transports with soldiers, with dynamite, whatever they had, homemade stuff. So there was a lot of killing going on from both sides. A lot of the partisans lost their lives. But that didn't stop them. Then in 42, December the 12th, the German army decided to attack the partisans. And they had a big, it was about 4,000 soldiers. We have it recorded in all the books, the amount, what was the fighting that was going on with tanks and with all they could on the front. And a lot of people got killed and a lot of people wounded. It lasted for over a week. And finally, they retreated because in those woods, they have a lot of, there's a lot of water in some places. It never freezes. So the soldiers couldn't go there in a lot of ways there because they would shrink in the water. So they had to sidetrack and they left the woods and peace started again. It came on like this till 43 and life was getting worse. We got sick. Our hiding place got water and we all got typhus, the children. And somehow we survived. I don't know how, but we survived. To keep clean, my aunt used to cut her hair. She had a knife from someplace. And to keep her hair clean, she chopped her hair off. So we had like steps in her head because we couldn't wash. So that was one form. Winter, we melted the snow, and that was our water and stuff. A lot of times, we didn't have a blanket to hide, so we slept outside in the snow. And like I keep saying to my friends, the snow was my mattress, and the sky was my blanket. Somehow, somebody up there was looking after us. And we survived. And it kept on like that till about sometimes in July of 44. All of a sudden, we hear unusual movements in the woods. You know, you could feel that there are people moving around, They're not hiding, but they are open. And we find out we're liberated, but we don't believe what we are liberated. It's not happening. And everybody's moving out. There's people all of a sudden, we bump into more people from the hideouts because we didn't know where anybody is, because every family had to be for themselves, because you couldn't trust your children, you couldn't trust your neighbor, because if they promise you to be alive, you might give me away. So you learn to be very unsure, and you don't trust anybody. You don't trust yourself, and you don't trust anybody else. But when we hear all of a sudden movement, open movement, so my uncle goes to inspect, and he wants like to go out of the woods. And my father comes in front of him and says, "What are you waiting? Go." He says, "Where?" He says, "You're liberated. The Red Army is already here." So my uncle goes back and he gets us, and we go to nouveau. Then the farmer said, "But be careful, because the Germans are coming now in the woods to hide." Because they didn't have enough time to run toward Germany, and the Red Army is coming from Russia to go to us. So Uncle came and we went out, and we started going out from the woods. Where are we going? It's a beautiful, beautiful August day. And as we go out, there are bushes of raspberries, the red raspberries, the size. There is all kind of different things, and the sun is shining. It doesn't look like a war. It doesn't look like anything. But where are we going? We were in the woods. We survived on blueberries picking, on mushroom sitting. We learned to pick the right ones. We knew which one is poisonous, which one is eatable. We ate it raw. We do the best. We took leaves to clean the dirt from the mushrooms. We had no water. Somehow it didn't affect us. So we marched to go home. But where is home? We have nobody in our homes. We have no homes to go to, no nothing. So we go up to our town. When we come in our town, where we go with first. Our house is right not far from the highway. We pass the house, all the doors are open, all the windows are open, and paper is flying in all directions. And then we find out finally, eventually, that there was a post stationed in our house. Why? Because it's almost out of town, and it has two roads, so they could watch from both sides in case somebody is going to attack in town. So we go farther, and as we walk, people come out to see what's the commotion on the street. And there were some more people coming who survived. And the people who live in those houses are not necessarily the ones who own their houses, because they are gone already. They are dead. Some other people live in those houses. And they say, "Oh, so you survived. Why you were killed, I don't know." And that's the welcome you get. But you go back, we go farther, and we go to my uncle's house. My grandparents' house is demolished. My uncle's house stays. Somebody lives there. There's flowers outside, so it's a giveaway. We find that my uncle's house empty. So we settled therein, and we trying to do what now? There's no bed, There's no bread, there's nothing. Who are you going to talk to? There's nobody to talk to. But the Red Army is there. That means the government is already finally there. And they opened like a kitchen or something. I don't even know what, because we didn't leave their house, we were afraid to go. So my uncle went around to look what's going on. And we learned there was a little bit of help. So that was our first day of liberation. We children walked around like zombies. We didn't know what day or night, it didn't matter to us because we had to be quiet. All we knew that we couldn't cough, we couldn't sneeze. Laughter wasn't something that we knew how to laugh. And to talk, we didn't talk much either. So it went by about a week or so, and some farmers who had taken some stuff from our house that mother gave them to save or keep, brought some back. So we could see there was still some decency in some people, because we didn't know that my parents gave stuff to the farmer. What did I know? I was 8 years old. So a lot of the farmers brought different things from the family back. My auntie was a seamstress, so she got a sewing machine back from a farmer, and she started sewing for the people. And my uncle got a job, and finally we went to school. So we had to learn again a new language, Russian and Belarus, because at that time it wasn't yet a country, but the population was Belarus, majority. So to school, we didn't feel that we missed any school, because it wasn't in our minds about school, about learning or anything. We were too, how should I say, we were not nourished enough. We had no strength for sitting in school or being concentrating. We needed doctor's care, we needed more nutritious stuff. So we were all sick a lot. Our feet were burned from frost. So I was the oldest. So it was hard, but my uncle and aunt did the best they could. And it was a time when parents left their children to save themselves, but my uncle and aunt looked after us, which I have never forgotten that, because it was more than normal in these years. After that winter, which was already 45, the government decided, since we were considered Polish citizens because they occupied Poland, and it was after the war, and they had too much for their own people, they are going to put in a new law. And if you, as a Polish citizen, want to immigrate to Poland, because the German part of Poland became Poland, they will allow you to immigrate to Poland. So we decided we will, and that's what we left for Russia. And we left for Poland. So when we left for Poland, we stayed in Lodz. It's a big city, and during the war, it had the longest ghetto. So there, at that time already, the war ended. When the war ended, there was a lot of help from Jewish organizations that came from the States and Israel, and they organized all kind of schools and help for the people that came from Russia and who survived the war in Poland. And from there we went to DP camps, which were in Germany. And from there I came to Canada in 48. And I settled in Winnipeg. And in Winnipeg I got married, and I had 2 children, and so many grandchildren. And we moved to Windsor because I found after the war a cousin who survived, who is the only family of my mother's family. So we've been in Windsor already for over 60 years. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions? Une question pour madame?
Who was it that liberated you?
Who was it that liberated you?
The Russian. The Russian army. Our part of Poland, where I come, which is Belarus now, is close to Minsk, the capital of Belarus. It's about 200 kilometers.
Did you write a book? Did you write a book?
No. I write into my head. I scribble on papers. What I gave you is a short version, let's put it that way. I cannot remember. I remember events, but I don't remember it to talk. When I write it down, I remember more. But when I check myself, I know basically I said mostly, okay?
We have another question? Yeah.
Do you have any kids?
Sorry.
Do you have any children?
I have a son here, come there, don't get up. That's my baby. And I have 2 grandchildren here. Come there. And I have a daughter in Pickering that's outside Toronto. And there are 2 children, grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren.
There's another one right here.
What year was it when you guys got liberated? Was it 1945?
I was liberated in 44.
44.
No, wait, yeah, 44. I think it was the end of July, August. But when we were liberated, all the partisans, the Jewish partisans and the Russians, they were right away mobilized in the Russian army because the front was going to from Russia to Poland, okay? So they went from our woods, okay, right with the ammunition that they had in the woods to fight the front. And when they came to a city, it's called Białystok. It's an old city. It was the border at that time when Poland was divided between Russia and Poland and Germany. Białystok was like the borderline. And it's close to Poland. There's a river, the Jemen it's called. It goes all over Poland and it goes to Germany. So that city was a very big fighting point when the Russian army was advancing toward the Germans. So most of the soldiers who were killed there because the German was on the hill and the Russian army was below.
I have a question right here. What year were you born?
In 1931, and I'm going to have a birthday in 2 months. January 12th.
Yeah, go ahead.
How old were you when you were...
When the war was in 1939, I was 8 years old.
So were you 8 years old when you first were in the ghettos?
How old were you when you first went into the ghetto?
It was in 42. The ghetto was in 42, so I was 10. I came to Canada, I was 16 years old, by myself with my brother. We came as Holocaust survivor children who lost their families. The Canadian government gave permission to the Jewish community in Canada to bring in up to 1,000 children who were homeless. They had to be under the age of 60, not older. And they weren't supposed to depend on the Canadian government. The transport from Europe to Canada, the getting jobs, places to live, everything wasn't responsibility of the Canadian government, of the Jewish community. So when I came, I was a week here, not even a week, and I went to work. My brother was younger, he went to school. But in those days, you didn't have schools for immigrants to learn the language. He went in right to a normal class. He finished school, public school, he finished high school, and then he left for Chicago to a parochial school. And he's a rabbi in Berlin.
Autre question? Yeah.
So how many languages did you learn?
How many languages do you speak?
Well, I spoke Polish and I spoke Russian and some Belarus, which is similar to Russian, and I spoke some German. But I use it very little, so I can understand. But when I speak, it comes from English. You know, when you learn a language, you have to use it. If you don't use it, eventually you lose it. And I have no need to use any of the languages.
We have another question?
Would you ever go back to visit?
Would you or have you ever gone back to visit?
No, I wouldn't go back. I have nothing to go back to. My father, I don't know where he was killed, okay? But we found out after the war, the farmer finally told the truth. They were killed the same day, that far outside of town. So I know that. I know my mother, when she was killed with a baby, I know where she's buried. There's nothing to go back. My cousin died during the hidden in the woods. She's buried there, but we couldn't bring her body back to town to be buried normally because we were afraid to go in the woods because there were Germans there. And then there's no Jewish cemetery left anymore because all the headstones and everything are gone. And so, you know, there's nothing to go back there. There's no Jewish people in there. Our city got formed in 1498. For the first date that's listed in the books as a city being formed, this is the year. In 1507, there were Jewish people already there. Okay, so right now there's nothing there. There's no Jewish people. It hasn't been there for years already. That's
Out
it.
of everything that happened, what were the hardest?
Yes.
Out of everything that happened, what was the hardest?
Hardest is when you live a life for generations with your neighbor. But when it comes to shove, they're not your friends. You can trust nobody. That's what you learn. You learn not to trust, and you learn to depend on nobody. You have to look after yourself. You have to watch where you go. Okay, I'll tell you an example. I'm already 60, I came to Canada in 48. Okay, how many years is it? Okay, I have a new neighbor. Okay, he was walking, a young boy. One day, I don't know, I was watching the news, somebody's walking, and all of a sudden, I turned stiff. And just the movement that he was making above me, it came back to me that I'm in ghetto and hiding. Why? The way he walked, it sounded like the boots of the soldiers. And this is already, how many years? Over 70. So, certain things, when I came to Canada, I wouldn't go in the escalator, okay? Because it moves like a ship. Okay? I was sick on the ship to come to Canada. I was taken up to in the, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Pier 42. Okay? I was there in the hospital on the ship because when we got to the English Channel, I got sick. And I was there till they brought me up the ship to Canada. So you see, there are certain memories that something hits you, it brings something back. You can forget, but you cannot forgive a lot of times. Do I make sense? Any more questions? Yes?
Did you stay in contact with the other people you hid with?
Did you stay in contact with other people you hid with?
Yes, I did. I and my brother are the only one left. My uncle and aunt and cousin passed away some years in Israel. My sister lived in Detroit, and she passed away 2 years ago. So my brother and I are the only survivors from our family.
How did you feel when you guys were being liberated?
How did I find after the liberation?
How did you guys feel when you guys were being liberated?
How did you feel being liberated?
Well, it feels better than being dead, that's for sure. But we didn't have any feeling for anything, you know. So you're liberated. It took time to heal. It took time to get back to a normal existence, you know, to a normal life. When I came to Canada, I didn't know anything about Canada. Where was Canada? When I was on the train from Halifax coming to Winnipeg, I didn't know where I was going, and I wasn't well, so when they said, maybe you'll go to Winnipeg, and we stopped in Montreal. Where's Winnipeg? Oh, someplace out west. Where is west? When you're on the train, that's, we were going, we couldn't see anything, just, it was in October. It was nothing, no trees, no nothing. When you drive from Halifax to Montreal and Winnipeg. So when we got to Winnipeg, I said to the woman, if you're sending me any place farther, I can't go, I'm tired, I'm sick, I want to go back. I had no place where to go. So I had to stay in Winnipeg. And Winnipeg became home. Because the people, I was lucky, the people that I was boarded to live, okay, were nice to me. They happened to be not far from the city I come from. But they were older people and they were many years away in Canada. So they made me feel like I would be a granddaughter. And my mother was lucky too, the same way. So if you get the atmosphere that people are nice to you and helpful, and they treat you like a human being, it makes a lot. You appreciate it.
Yeah, last
How many
question.
siblings do you have?
How many siblings did you have?
2. But how many did I get? 3. I'm the oldest, my brother, and my sister, my baby.
Okay. On behalf of everyone here at Lajeunesse, we'd like to thank you yet again for coming and sharing your story with us. We have a few students that wrote you thank you letters and what it meant for them that you were here today. So I'd like to invite those students to come up and hand the letters over to Ms. Monczak. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ok, ça conclut la présentation d'aujourd'hui. On aimerait vous remercier. Il y a presque la fin de page 3. Avant de quitter, si vous voulez dire un remerciement à Mme Monczak ou juste lui glisser un mot avant de quitter, vous êtes le bienvenu. Par la suite, la cloche va sonner, vous devez vous rendre à votre Pay 4. Okay? Merci.